so high. Let's hope I can remember how to do this. It's been a few weeks now, so I think the shock will have worn off for those who were, in fact, shocked. Many weren't shocked at all, but the confirmation of what some of us already knew or at the very least anticipated still required its own amount of emotional management. Leading up to the election, I saw this from Hampton Institute about how this election would actually be one of the most insignificant ever, contrary to all of the messaging from the DNC about saving democracy. I'm inclined to agree with this take because it was really an illusion of choice. For me, election day was deja vu all over again. I still vote every single election, but I am under no delusions about us being able to vote our way out of capitalism. We will not destroy the empire at the ballot box because if we could, then they wouldn't let us vote at all. Then again, the empire is destroying itself, but we'll get to that. I also saw this floating around in the day or days leading up to the election, and it had truly never occurred to me that it was either or. It is both, and I would hope that that is obvious. Kwame Ture put it perfectly, which was pretty much always the case with Baba Ture.
If you look at the Africans in the Democratic Party, now I'm not a Democrat. I've never voted in my life in the Democratic Party, and I never vote in the Democratic Party. It's racist and it's capitalist to the core. This is understood. And I shed my blood. I shed my blood for the vote now. I want to make that clear. Some people get confused. The vote for me has never been the road to liberation. It's only the means of organizing my people. You vote for once in 4 years and that's your political responsibility. That's the height of bourgeois propaganda, making the people politically irresponsible, thinking their irresponsibility is limited to a one-day vote.
I struggled with the implicit hypocrisy of voting because my vote upholds a system of electoral politics that I don't believe in. You don't wage war with weapons forged by your enemies, which is my ham-fisted version of Audre Lorde's iconic quotation about Master's house and Master's tools. But, you know, holla at me when y'all ready to burn it all down and I'll bring the doggone marshmallows. Anyway, just as in 2016 and 2020 while we're at it, I didn't go to anybody's election results viewing party. I did not turn on anybody's CNN Live. I dropped off my ballot at my polling place and then avoided election coverage entirely. I made dinner, showered, did skincare, tucked in my dog because it do get chilly at night and she likes to be cozy, and we took our asses to bed. And a couple weeks ago, despite an attempted media blackout that night, I woke up knowing. I woke up and I just knew, which is also how I woke up on a similar morning in November of 2016. This time when I went to use my tablet in the morning, I had a push notification on my lock screen from Apple News or somebody declaring Trump the winner, even though I already have notifications like that blocked because I legit never use any pre-installed corporate news apps in the first place. Anyway, I was not shocked, but I was shook. And so was my girl Z. I know you're watching. Hey girl. We have a similar politic and we talked all about this before it all happened when I was at home on the East Coast a few weeks back. So when she texted the morning after the election to see if I had time for a call just to kind of talk through the strangeness we were both feeling, it was needed because Z, I, and many others more or less expected this. The only thing surprising to me and to her was the fact that we actually felt rattled. When I stepped outside the house, there was just an eerie feeling. To be clear, I was rattled because my anxiety spiked in a very specific way. The MAGA cult reveling in their perceived triumph poses an immediate threat to the day-to-day safety of all Black people. We already know what these people are like and how they move. So I'm watching my six even more than before, which was already a lot. Feeling frightened is specific to this male holding power, and that's because of who we know aligns with and even deifies him. Frustration, disappointment, annoyance, anger even, these are standard reactions to an undesirable candidate winning the presidency. Being afraid for your bodily safety should not be, but here we are. I did a Patreon live stream just to check in with my people a couple days after the election, and a lot of us didn't even really want to talk about it, which I felt I had everything and nothing to say about it. When it came to the two choices within the duopoly, I, like most so-called radicals, because it's now radical to draw a hard line at gender. Anyway, many radicals had no dog in the fight in the first place. They really said,
would you prefer the palatable poised fascist who was appointed as candidate completely outside of any democratic process. Y'all want her to be the one fighting the oligarchs and perpetuating white supremacist imperialism? Or would you rather the racist offender felon fugazi assassination attempt stunt queen fascist with staggering cognitive and physical decline and tiny hands to spin the block on that white supremacist oligarch D? Which one would you rather have?
Lose-lose. Neither option was going to make shit okay. Blue MAGA trying to shame and insult people with lesser of two evils arguments can miss me with the bull. Lesser of two evils is still co-signing evil. But the Trump win is beyond America's mask slipping. This is the second time this has happened, and he even won the popular this time. The mask is fully off. And that includes with the liberals who really pretended that voting blue no matter who was some kind of flex for freedom, was going to save a non-existent democracy. And then when they didn't get their way this time around, were spouting some of the exact same xenophobic, Islamophobic rhetoric as their MAGA original unflavored counterparts. It's giving the Spider-Man meme. But I guess it's okay to label yourself progressive when you do a racism with a rainbow flag in your bio. And all the people talking about,
we going back to Starbucks, we don't care anymore.
About to actually post your Starbucks revenge TikTok or whatever and think you doing something? Listen, no one needs to shame you because history will do that work. Their preferred lesser evil lost, so these people willingly put themselves on the internet and basically told us, if this were 1824 and not 2024, I wouldn't care about slavery as long as I was free. If this were 1885, I'd be blaming the Congolese for Leopold II instead of the European colonists who actually empowered him. If this were 1933, I'd be blaming Jewish people for Hitler's ascension. That's what they're telling us. Despite the fact that the folks who voted third party are effectively insignificant statistically in this election's outcome, as usual, there are still people trying the same old blame game we saw 8 years ago and plenty of times in the past, going back to Ralph Nader and before that. I got so sick of that idiotic shit. I more or less stopped posting and talking about politics on YouTube pretty much completely and just kept it in the family on my Patreon. Those who are not surprised that Trump won are also not surprised that this ahistoric argument is being trotted out yet again, and we were calling it even before Biden dropped out. If liberals were able to overlook the genocide happening in Sudan, Congo, Palestine, Tigray, need I continue, since the Democrat candidate only spoke on one of those four, and all she said was she promised to keep it going. If liberals were able to overlook that to vote blue no matter who, should anyone be surprised that Trump's people can overlook all of his shit and truly believe he's going to make America great again? The again is always the most mystifying bit. Again implies there was a first time it was great. Never forget that the liberals are foxes, and just because you see them teeth, it don't mean they smiling at you. They will always work to further enshrine fascism over collective liberation because fascism protects capital. These so-called public servants do not work for the public. I have said this several, really a lot of times, but fascism isn't here now or gonna be here because of Trump 2 Proud Boys Boogaloo. Fascism has been here for decades, and there has been no shortage of fascistic policies under the current administration. I surmised in a Patreon video months ago that the Democratic Party actually wanted to lose because they have the same interests as the right anyway. The Democratic Party isn't even centrist. They are well to the right of center at this point. So for them to lose is still a win for the ruling class and the billionaires they serve, and they get to come out looking clean to anyone in the constituency who isn't paying attention. Then they can pretend they're going to save democracy again the next time they want you to let them hold 20 with an Act Blue donene, and then again at the midterms, and then again in 2028, and on and on and on. The DNC systematically blocks any progressive candidates, policies, or general social movement to the left, while conservatives do what they always do, thereby shifting the so-called left to the right. A lot of people refer to this phenomenon as the ratchet effect. Eugene Puryear, who is brilliant and dope, and when it comes to history, that man is in the crates, okay? He will give you names, dates, context, and context for the context. But he said on a recent call that I was on that the agenda of 80s Republicans is what is advanced by the Democrats of today. This is why a couple folks had semi-viral videos breaking down how the so-called lesser evil of today is more evil than the greater evil of yesterday. These Democrats out here got Reagan looking damn near like a pacifist when it comes to certain foreign policy choices. It's wild. So anyone who still views the DNC as the left is rooted deeply in nostalgia or even in delusion rather than reality. If Gritty has quoted once, he done quoted 1,000 times. I don't oppose Democrats because I'm on the same side as Republicans. I oppose Democrats because they're on the same side as Republicans. Trump's win doesn't change the course of what America would have been with either outcome. It merely accelerates the trajectory. And the acceleration itself is admittedly disconcerting. Even when you've been preparing for disaster, it's still scary when the disaster lands at your door. People are already talking about what we need to do in 2028, and that's the fucking problem. Completely wrong mentality. One of the greatest reminders I will carry out of 2024 and into the rest of my life is that it is a grave error to think you have more time. Endlessly, perpetually thinking that you have more time. This year has been kind of bookended with this lesson for me on a personal level when a friend of mine passed away in shocking and unexpected fashion in January. And then on an existential level now, at the end of the year, as America continues to show its entire ass. Because it isn't just that Trump won. A lot of y'all know I'm a resident of California. Trump didn't win my state because Blue MAGA outnumbers MAGA Classic here, but not by as much as some of y'all seem to think, and not at all in a lot of areas. But let's ignore the noise from the garbage truck outside and talk about some of the BS that happened down ballot in California. Maybe this will quell some of the misconceptions that people have about Cali being some Xanadu for non-binary lizard people to get welfare checks for yoga and matcha enemas. So check it. California voted to keep slavery via unpaid labor as punishment for incarcerated people. California voted to expand misdemeanor drug charges and shoplifting, reclassifying them as felonies, aka more criminalization, aka more slaves for the prison slavery complex. California voted against expanding rent control in a state that has two of the most expensive cities to live in the world, and where many people are one missed paycheck away from financial ruin. Oh, and they also criminalize homelessness here, which means what? More slaves for the prison slavery complex. Even though I don't waver on my feeling that voting for the lesser of two evils still advances evil, I still, at least energetically, feel the grief of the people who legitimately didn't see this possibility. Not to sound all kumbaya, but we must never give up on each other because the enemy is organized, and that's how we got here. That's why the duopoly went unchecked yet again, rather than the left organizing in a real way to actually take a swing to topple it. The problem isn't third-party candidates. The problem is third, fourth, and fifth-party candidates. Doruba bin Wahad, Black Panther, Black Liberation Army. And if you know anything about the BLA, then you know that means Baba bin Wahad was about that action, okay? But he raised a great point during the election cycle. He was asking, why do we have Cornel West and Claudia de la Cruz and Jill Stein running against each other? There are so many times in liberation work where I fear some folks want to be right more than they want to be free. Because the Venn diagram overlap of the people to whom these candidates would appeal has massive overlap. I even remember seeing something toward the end of the election cycle about PSL telling their people to vote for Jill Stein in these states, but Jill Stein people should vote for Claudia in these other states. I said, girl, what? Why not form a coalition where two of these leftist candidates ran together with the third's endorsement on a real, progressive, anti-capitalist, pro-ceasefire ticket to create an opportunity for a real third party to campaign? It might have moved the needle with the apparent millions who stayed home this year and didn't vote, and created real momentum to take down the two-party chokehold. Instead, the left's opportunity to make moves was diluted and rendered completely impotent. Again, Trump is a blatantly fake populist. I would love it if someone did a study on the disaffected Bernie bro to MAGA pipeline. I don't even think Trump wants to be president. What he wants is to avoid prison. I wouldn't be surprised if that fool tries to pardon himself. He don't even care about his cult. All of this, going back to his birther BS, this has always been about his ego And now it's about his ego and avoiding the pokey. Unfortunately, what he and white supremacists in positions of power have always been good at is keeping people too broke and too uneducated and too anti-black to realize that they voted for the man who's picking their pocket. This has always been the strategy from day none. Another thing Eugene Premiere mentioned on that call was how the electoral system, when they set it up back in 1787, was deliberately set up to preserve the divide between the rich and the poor. James Madison said so in the Federalist Papers candidly. It is designed to keep the majority from overriding the desires of the wealthy minority. Beau of the Fifth Column graciously invited me on his channel years ago for a collab, and he asked me what I thought needed to be done. I said back then, we need a page 1 rewrite. We don't need a new Democratic ticket in 2028. We need a new constitution. However, it became clear some years ago that the same sense of urgency has not reached a critical mass for that type of action. And if the hellscape we're already living in ain't made urgent already, I don't know what will. Just kidding. I do. And it's the president-elect. The accelerated timeline is going to have a lot of maggots shook when they get exactly what they voted for in the coming months and years. He's a fake populist, remember? Look at who he aligns himself with. His on-again, off-again, will they or won't they bromance with cabinet appointee Elon Musk alone says it all. People of all races can't afford rent and groceries, and we know that this happens in disproportionate percentages across different racial groups due to America doing America tings. And now this empire is on the fast track to destroy itself. Caesar and them thought they was gonna last forever too. And now look, it's over for these hoes. Capitalism can only exist due to lack. When people's basic needs are met, then they have no reason to participate in empire. Elon Musk could eliminate homelessness and hunger today, all by himself if he wanted to. I say again, when basic needs are met, people have no reason to participate in empire. But when the scale of lack tips too far in one direction, and a critical mass of people's needs are not being met, they have no reason whatsoever to preserve empire. I've spent the last couple of weeks offline more than usual, and I've been spending extra time in my real life communities, in the room together with my people and my comrades, strategizing, learning, just being together. When I think about the big problems, they're too big. It just leads to overwhelm and despair. But certainly not f***ing Starbucks. Anyway, years ago I had to change my expectations politically, and I don't mean that as in electoral politics or what have you. In case you're new here, I say politics to encompass a person's overall code and worldview. Everyone has a politic, which is informed by their societal positioning, ethics, and experiences. So people who say, I'm not political, are actually telling us their politic by saying that. And why, yes, it is a self-drag. Point is, the way that I dream, the way that I imagine, and the way that I move had to change so that I could carry on dreaming and imagining and moving. The fatigue from hearing about atrocities day after day is real because we all have our own daily struggles too. Truthfully, I don't believe we're going to get that page 1 rewrite while I'm still here walking this earth. So that apathy can really start coming up at you. The power and direct impact that we have in our homes and communities is several orders of magnitude greater than anything we will ever achieve by picking a new fascist every 4 to 8 years. It sounds like a cop-out when people say, don't despair, organize, but then people saying that ain't wrong. What might be lacking is specificity, since people on the Bird app and places like such as, they love to say things without qualifying them. What does it even mean to organize? Well, it can look a lot of different ways. One of the things that continues to reinvigorate me and keep me connected to my purpose and role in getting free is seeing all of the different ways that people find their way to contribute. People find what they're good at, what they're comfortable with, what they're most passionate about. And it's a gorgeous thing. At a NatFam book club a couple months ago, we just read In the Time of the Butterflies by Julia Alvarez. And I remember Ash, hey girl, because I'm sure she's watching too. Ash said something similar to this at the meeting. She said, look, some folks are going to be out there on the front lines, but we also need somebody in the back making sandwiches. And she's right. We gonna need them sandwiches. Starting off can be as simple as writing down 1, 2, 3, even 5 things that would improve your day to day and that would give you and your community more stability and a higher quality of life. Then think of 1 to 5 things that you know you're good at and that you can offer within your community. If you're passionate about food sovereignty, maybe learn container gardening basics if you don't have access to some land. Maybe get some folks together to seize a plot in the neighborhood and start a whole ass community garden. Maybe even grow enough for an affordable farmer's market of produce. That's as locally grown gets. In just a couple months or years, those fruits and veggies can even become mutual aid to your neighbors with food insecurity. This is an instance where social media is actually a good tool because you can use it to find local organizations that are already out here organizing, and you can pick one or more that you vibe with to actually join. Having real life in the flesh comrades has been critical for me to stay connected, fulfilled, and on purpose. To make things more inclusive beyond these examples, as well as more actionable, and because I know internet people love an infographic, I'm gonna link this one here in the D box. Some or all of these things are old hat and obvious if you've been out here for a while studying and training and organizing and preparing for this. But honestly, fuck the doom and gloom. Now is not too late. We all start somewhere and we all learn as we go constantly. We're all we got, but we are also all we need. The crumbling of the empire has accelerated with this result. So we have to be not as organized, but more organized than the enemy to make sure that our people aren't caught under the rubble. Take your shit offline whenever possible and turn off phones in the room or leave them in the car or some shit. Move in silence and only with those you trust. And never forget that trust is earned. That is it for this one. It has for real been about a year since I posted an actual edited video here on my open to the public YouTube. And I'm gonna be real, I had almost debilitating anxiety getting on here to film today. And I had a lot of false starts in making this video because my talking points have been ready for weeks. So my thanks to you in particular for sticking with me through this to the end on today. And my goal is to be more consistent again. Moving into 2025. You can also always find me on Patreon where I post every single week. And I'm also still on Instagram for some reason. Make sure y'all stay safe, stay dangerous, and I'll be seeing y'all again soon.
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm gonna tell you that now.